I wasn't wearing anything special. Just a soft, oversized t-shirt and leggings that still smelled faintly of the vanilla candle I knocked over while cleaning. It was supposed to be a normal Thursday dinner. My husband pacing in the kitchen, stressing about which wine to serve, practicing small talk with his boss. I didn't even think I'd see him alone. But an hour before dinner, my husband's phone rang. Emergency at the warehouse. His eyes were frantic as he apologized, grabbing his keys, telling me to keep the wine breathing, saying it's fine, just keep him company until I'm back. And then he left me there alone with the man I'd only seen in stiff blue suits, standing tall behind conference tables. I remember the sound of the door clicking shut. The sudden silence. The weight of it. He was early too. Knocked once, then let himself in like he'd been there before, carrying a bottle of dark red, eyes scanning the room until they found me. It was a different gaze than at the office Christmas party. Warmer. Slower. I felt it before I understood it. I offered to pour the wine, trying to keep my hands steady, but they weren't steady. Because I could feel it, something in the way he leaned in just a little too close when he handed me the cork, something in the way his eyes dropped to my lips when I said, "Thank you." I told myself I was imagining it. I told myself I was just nervous. That this was nothing. But when he sat down at my kitchen island, I could feel it in the silence between us. That silence was thick, like the heat before a summer storm, pressing into my skin. I felt my breath catch in my chest when he looked at me and didn't look away. I didn't know what to say. So I just smiled too soft, too long, hoping it would break the tension, but it only made it worse. That's when I realized something I wasn't ready to admit. My body was already betraying me, before I even had the chance to say, no. He asked me if I was okay. I think he could see it on my face, the flush that wouldn't leave, the way I kept touching my hair, twisting the ends, trying to find something to do with my hands. I told him I was fine, but the word came out too soft, almost like a whisper. He smiled, and it wasn't the polite smile I'd seen him give in meetings. It was slower, like he was letting himself look at me for the first time, really look. His gaze moved down and up again, and when our eyes met, I felt it deep in my stomach, a quiet drop that made my breath skip. I tried to focus on the small things. The way the wine glowed in the glass. The quiet hum of the fridge. The way the afternoon light fell across the counter, making everything look softer, warmer. I told him my husband would be back soon, but he only nodded, swirling the wine, not taking his eyes off me. I don't know why I started talking. Maybe it was the quiet, or maybe it was the way his attention made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. I told him about the silly things, how I'd spilled flour all over the kitchen earlier, how I couldn't decide which playlist to put on, how I was nervous about making a good impression. He listened, really listened, leaning forward, resting his forearms on the counter, nodding, giving me that slow, steady gaze that made everything else blur around him. Every time he looked at me, it felt like his eyes were pressing into me, like he was pulling something out of me I didn't even know was there. I could feel my pulse in my neck, and my wrists, in places I didn't want to admit. He told me I had nothing to worry about, that I was already doing everything right. His voice was low, calm, almost intimate, like he was telling me a secret meant only for me. I laughed, but it came out shaky. He didn't laugh back. He just kept looking, and something in me started to unravel. It was in the way he leaned a little closer across the counter, how his hand brushed against mine when I reached for my glass, how he didn't pull back, how I didn't either. And in that quiet kitchen, with my husband's jacket still hanging by the door, I realized the danger wasn't in him being there. The danger was in how much I wanted him to stay. There's something about silence that makes you hear your own heartbeat. I felt it, heavy, echoing in my chest as he leaned closer, the space between us shrinking with every breath I took. I could smell the wine on his lips, something dark and sweet, mixing with the faint cologne he wore, the kind that clings to the air and makes you close your eyes for a moment without realizing. I shouldn't have closed my eyes. Because when I opened them, he was still looking at me, and there was nothing polite in the way he did it now. It was slow, deliberate, tracing over my face, dropping to my neck, lingering there. I felt the heat rise in my skin, the way my breath grew shallow, the way my fingers curled around the stem of the glass just to keep from shaking. I tried to speak, to say something normal, something safe. But my voice caught in my throat when his hand brushed over mine again, this time staying there, warm and steady, his thumb grazing lightly over my wrist. It was nothing. It was everything. I didn't pull away. I could have. I should have. But I didn't. Instead, I looked at his hand on mine, the way his thumb moved. Slow circles that sent quiet shivers up my arm, and I felt a warmth gather low in my belly, a heat that made me shift in my seat, made me press my thighs together beneath the table, hoping he didn't notice. But he did. I could see it in the way his lips parted slightly, the way his eyes darkened, the way he exhaled softly like he was trying to keep himself in control. I told myself it was just a moment. Just a touch. But then he spoke my name, soft, careful, like he was testing how it felt in his mouth. And the way he said it made something inside me twist, made something inside me ache. The kitchen felt too warm. The air felt too heavy. I could feel every inch of him across the small space between us, the way his presence pulled at me, the way my body leaned in without permission, like it was searching for something I hadn't let myself want in so long. I wasn't thinking about my husband's keys on the counter. I wasn't thinking about the jacket by the door. I wasn't thinking about what this meant or what would happen next. All I could think about was how close he was. And how much closer I wanted him to be. I don't know who moved first. Maybe it was me, shifting closer under the pretense of reaching for the bottle, or maybe it was him, leaning in so his shoulder brushed mine, warm and steady. It felt like a soft pull, an invisible thread tying us together, drawing me into his quiet gravity. The glass was still in my hand, but I didn't taste the wine anymore. I only felt the way my breath quickened, the way every inch of me felt awake, alive, straining toward him without permission. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. The air was saying everything thick and heavy, pressing into my skin, pulling goosebumps along my arms. I could feel the warmth radiating from him, the soft exhale of his breath, the way his eyes traced the curve of my cheek as if memorizing it. When his hand lifted, hovering near my hair, I froze. Not out of fear, but from the way that small, careful gesture sent a wave of heat rushing through me, pooling low and deep, making me swallow hard. His fingers brushed a strand away from my face, slow, deliberate, letting them trail along the side of my neck before pulling back. It was barely a touch, but it felt like lightning. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding, my eyes flickering to his, searching for something, maybe a reason to stop, maybe permission to keep going. I didn't know which I wanted more. His gaze dropped to my lips and I felt the way my body reacted before I even thought about it. The small tilt of my head, the soft parting of my lips, the way I leaned in just slightly, just enough. He noticed. I saw it in the way his jaw tightened, the way his eyes darkened, the way his breathing matched mine. There was a pause, a moment so fragile it felt like the world might shatter around us if either of us moved. And then I felt it, his forehead resting lightly against mine, his breath mixing with mine, our noses brushing as we both closed our eyes for just a moment, letting the tension break, letting ourselves sink into the closeness we were both too afraid to claim fully. His hand found mine on the counter, his thumb tracing circles over my knuckles, grounding me and unraveling me at the same time. I could feel everything. The heat. The trembling in my legs. The soft ache of wanting something I knew I shouldn't. The fear that once this moment broke, nothing would be the same. And in that quiet kitchen, with the clock ticking softly behind us, I realized there was no going back. Not after this. The space between us was barely there. Just a breath, just a heartbeat, just a thin thread of hesitation holding us apart. I could feel the warmth of his skin near mine, the soft hum of his breathing, the way his thumb was still tracing circles over my hand, grounding me even as it made me feel like I was falling. My eyes fluttered shut, and for a moment, I let myself feel it, everything I had been holding back, everything I hadn't let myself want. I felt the brush of his nose against my cheek, the softness of it making my skin prickle with awareness. His breath touched the corner of my mouth, warm and careful, making my lips part without thinking. I didn't realize I was holding my breath until it escaped in a quiet, shaky sigh. His other hand lifted, hovering near my jaw before he finally let it rest there, his thumb brushing along the edge of my chin in a gesture so gentle it almost broke me. I turned my face into his touch, needing it, letting my lips graze the pad of his thumb, letting him feel the way I trembled. And then slowly, carefully he tilted my chin up, and our foreheads pressed together again. My eyes opened and his were there, dark, searching, asking without words. I could have said no. I could have pulled back, stepped away, pretended this was nothing more than a moment of weakness. But I didn't. Instead, I let my hand slide up, resting against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart under my palm. It was fast like mine, and that small detail made something tender ache inside me. We stayed like that for a moment, suspended, breathing each other in, letting the world outside disappear. The ticking clock, the cooling dinner, the unopened wine, they all felt miles away. When his lips finally touched mine, it wasn't rushed or hungry. It was soft, careful, almost hesitant, like he was giving me the chance to stop him, to pull away. But I didn't stop him. The kiss deepened, slow and warm, his lips moving against mine like he was learning me, savoring the moment. I felt his hand slide to the back of my neck, pulling me just a little closer, letting his forehead rest against mine when we pulled away, both of us breathless, eyes closed, letting the quiet settle around us like a confession. I felt dizzy, like the world had shifted under my feet, like I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross. My chest rose and fell in quick, shallow breaths, and when I opened my eyes, he was already looking at me, and in that gaze, I saw the truth neither of us had spoken out loud. We both wanted this. And neither of us was going to pretend we didn't anymore. His hand was still on the back of my neck, his thumb brushing softly just below my ear, sending quiet shivers through me with each slow stroke. Our foreheads rested together, our breath warm and uneven, mixing in the small space between us. It should have felt wrong. But all I felt was the ache of how much I wanted him. When he kissed me again, it was deeper, pulling me in, taking the breath from my lungs in the softest way. My hand slid up, gripping his shirt, needing to hold onto something as I felt the world tilt. His lips moved against mine with slow insistence, tasting, pressing, retreating, only to return with a quiet urgency that made my knees weaken. I felt the edge of the counter against my hip as he gently guided me back, his hands moving to either side of me, caging me in without forcing me, giving me the choice. I didn't move away. I let myself feel the warmth of him, the steady, quiet strength, the way his chest rose and fell with each breath, matching mine. His hand lifted, brushing a strand of hair away from my face before his fingers traced down along my jaw, to the side of my neck. Lingering there, feeling the rapid thrum of my pulse beneath his touch. His eyes found mine, dark and searching, and for a moment the world went quiet. I could see it in his gaze. He was asking me if I was sure. I didn't say a word. I just leaned in, pressing my lips to his again, letting the answer be in the way I kissed him back. Letting it be in the way my hands slid up to rest on his shoulders, pulling him closer, needing him closer. His hands moved to my waist, his touch firm but gentle, holding me as if I was something he was afraid to break, yet something he couldn't let go of. I felt the warmth of his hands through the thin fabric of my shirt, the way it made my skin come alive under his palms. My body reacted before my mind could catch up, arching slightly into him, seeking the heat, the closeness, the safety and danger all wrapped into one. I felt his breath catch, felt the way his fingers tightened for a moment on my hips before sliding up, tracing the curve of my back, pulling me into him. It was a slow dance of hesitation and hunger, of soft kisses and trembling sighs, of letting ourselves feel everything we had tried so hard to ignore. In that quiet kitchen, with the world outside forgotten, it felt like the moment stretched forever, like we were suspended in a warm, breathless hush that neither of us wanted to break. And in that moment, I wasn't thinking about the consequences. I wasn't thinking about what it meant or what would happen next. I was only thinking about the way he made me feel alive. I don't know how long we stood there, the world narrowing to the soft press of his lips, the warmth of his breath against my skin, the quiet trembling of my hands as I clung to him like the air was too thin without him near. He kissed me like he was learning every part of me, and I let him, letting the soft gasps and shaky sighs slip out of me, letting my body melt into his touch. His hands moved slowly, reverently, tracing down my back, memorizing the shape of me, the curve of my waist, the softness of my hips. When he pulled back just enough to look at me, his eyes searched mine like he was waiting for regret to appear, for me to push him away. But all I did was press my forehead against his, letting my eyes flutter shut as my fingers brushed along his jaw, feeling the scratch of his stubble, the warmth of his skin, the quiet tension in the way he held himself. "Are you sure?" he whispered, his voice so soft I barely heard it. I opened my eyes, letting him see the truth there. Letting him see the way my lips parted, the way my breath shook, the way my body leaned in as if pulled by something deeper than want. My answer was in the way I kissed him again, letting the moment take me, letting myself surrender to the heat I had tried to ignore. His hands cupped my face, holding me like I was something precious, something breakable, something he had wanted for longer than either of us would ever admit. And as his lips moved against mine, slow and deep, I felt something inside me unravel, something soft and raw that I hadn't let myself feel in so long. For a moment, the world outside that kitchen didn't exist. The jacket by the door, the unopened wine, the quiet hum of the fridge, they all faded until it was just us, breath and warmth and the soft, aching sound of our lips parting and finding each other again. And when we finally pulled back, breathless and trembling, I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know what this meant or what we had just started. All I knew was that I didn't stop him. And deep down, I didn't want to.